Kaboom! You hit it. You start this one.
You kaboomed it. What we do is sometimes we don't discuss ahead of time who's going to start, and then we have like a little 5-second countdown timer, and then we both just smile, wondering who's going to start it. Kaboom starts it. You can't just be like, kaboom, you know what? No, you start it.
Well, welcome to another smash hit exciting episode of Mind Under Matter, the only podcast that discusses stuff. And today we're going to be discussing psychedelics again, even more in-depth style, because we wanted to cover more than what we did on episode, what was it, 17?
It was like
the Psychedelics one.
17 or 19, something like that. We did, I think it was maybe 19. And I talked a bunch about ketamine because I had recent experiences with it. And then we also just went off the rails a little bit. Not really. We were making the case that tripping is more than just a drug, and lots of other things other than psychedelics have psychedelic-ish qualities, and like travel, or say an Amish person using electricity for a couple years during that whatever weird period of time in their like leaving the nest stage where they go out and come back.
Yeah, they're churning is what they call it. That's when a young male or female Amish turns the ripe old age of 16 or 18, I forget which one. They go on a churn in which they churn all the chemicals in their head, their experiences, much like the butter they churn back at their Amish hut. And then after they've experienced the full range of stuff that the secular world has to offer, they make the choice of whether they want to churn back or whether they want to churn out. If they churn back, then they go back to churning butter with their nice Amish family. If they churn out, then they go become Christopher Columbus and sail into wild new territories.
That we're both good at pretending that we're experts. The difference is you know when you're doing it, and I don't. That's I like that in your world. The Amish are in huts too.
Yeah, they live in one big hut, and people think, oh, they're primitive. What, they live in a hut? No, this is a very huge, advanced hut. It withstands hurricanes, blizzards, asteroids, floods, you name it. That's why they've lived this long, not because they've also used a little bit of modern technology, because the hut.
It's hut living. Yeah. So when we decided to do a psychedelic episode, we know it's a crowd pleasing topic, and it's also things that we really like talking about. But we decided to, because we had just dabbled. We both hadn't done a psychedelic in some time, and then had dabbled recently. We both went off, had a positive experience independently on mushrooms, and so we were like, this is a more prime time to talk about that when it's a little more fresh. Although I think I'm going to do mushrooms again sooner. I think soon-ish. I just feel like I'm in a place where it would benefit me, and I'm in a lower on and off. I'm in like an inconsistent. I'm like a little, I don't know. Brain fog isn't quite the word. I just feel like I've been missing a few IQ points lately. Just something. I had a big run of just boom, creative, exploding ideas everywhere, and great ones too. And then after that, I just felt like, my brain's just not quite. it's not operating at that same level.
Yeah,
and
the ball is being passed and then it just lands in the audience, and even the guy in the audience doesn't grab it. It's just the ball just dun, 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 and then people stand there for a while.
I mean, it's so good to at least be aware of that and aware that it's a passing state, both of them, because when you're firing on all cylinders, that's also a passing state. I
hate that's it. I want to fire on all cylinders permanently, with the exception of like a few hours a night to sleep. But other than that, I want all the cylinders, baby.
That's the trick of it. No one's like, give me less cylinders today. No one ever. I mean, we reframe these, like, we can talk about difficult trips and maybe that's not totally true that no one's going, like, necessarily going for the difficult trip, because I think there are plenty of people that are know enough about it that expect and even kind of feel like they need one of those. Like we often talk about kind of acute stressors on the show rather than prolonged chronic stressors,
such as the current world state, or maybe the world media state. But also it's the world, like, even if there was no such thing as COVID, like, just the fact that there's media about it, even if it was not a real thing, it would still be like, oh, it's just eroding my being. I'm being eroded like the Grand Canyon.
There's a lot to be vigilant for. There's a lot to consider. There's relationships at stake. Our social lives are upended in a lot of ways, and it's just all these like weird things that you don't like. Just tonight, I started like a week ago. I tried online dating for the first time, just firing up a few of those apps, and haven't tried Match, and I don't know anything about it. Just swiping around, and I matched with someone seemed pretty interesting, and then I was like, oh shit, I have to ask if they're vaccinated now. And that's like such a weird that you didn't have to consider that. They're getting their second one in 2 days. Actually.
Oh, good. So and are they okay with being on the podcast and not being named? Because they are.
I mean, it doesn't. Hey. They wouldn't even.
I'm the other guy, but I'm not part of the dating.
They wouldn't know if I was. It could be. I mean, well, whatever.
I mean, I feel like don't we all? I have not dated in a decade. I've been a domestic animal, a happy domestic animal for almost a decade. But I would imagine if I was doing the online thing, like, you look at everything that person is about, like, what's their Instagram, can't look at their LinkedIn because then it'll show that I saw their profile and that keeps track of it. But what's their Facebook? What does their MySpace look like? You don't do a deep dive, or is that just...
Well, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. First off, I'm new to it, so I already once got had by a bot. I think anyway. It seemed pretty botty, and it was clever because it wasn't like, some knockout like, this isn't even real. Like it was like, just attractive enough. A profile picture and stuff, nothing crazy, just seemed like a nice face and stuff, and so yeah, that was like a day one lesson, but I don't know, just texting. I don't know the first thing about it. I'm no expert, and I'm putting very little effort into it, mostly because the stakes for me are quite low, because I'm leaving town in like a little over a week, and I just wanted to go paddleboarding with someone because I have a second paddleboard now, and so like I don't really care if they're like a little crazy or whatever. Like I just kind of want company for 3 hours while I go paddleboarding, and it's not really, I don't need it or want anything much beyond that. I'm leaving for a month anyway, so it doesn't really, so I don't need to vet anything. But COVID is a thing. But that's the reason why I bring it up, is because these are all these considerations that these are all these additional considerations. Even if you like, I don't turn on the media. I scroll Twitter for shit. So I guess that's media.
Yeah, it's the cigarettes of today. We all know it's bad and we all can't stop.
Yeah.
But we still do it, and they're going to look back on like they knew it was bad and they still did it. Yeah. Did they like it? Some of them did. Most of them didn't, but they just kind of did it as a thing that they did.
Yeah. They're eventually gonna ban social media on airplanes and stuff. People are gonna throw a fit for a while, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, can you believe people were just on social media in airplanes?"
Yeah.
So this is the point is that this pandemic is this ongoing thing. Our media situation is this ongoing thing, and it just wears on you. Whereas having like one difficult trip where you just get down to the bottom of the worst of the the stuff you put off thinking about or try to give yourself pep talks about, or you have all these guilty things come to the surface or what have you.
You murdered your family, you blamed it on your cousin, they're still doing time.
Yeah, and it's nice to experience that memory of murdering your family for like 4 hours, and then that's it. And then put it away, rather than it weighing on you day in and day out. But yeah, no one. That's the thing about negative states, which is why we went off on that tangent. Is no one's ever like, give me a few depressed days.
Yeah,
no one. If life if you just woke up each day to a vending machine of days. Once in a while, someone would take the depressed day just to remind yourself, like, I don't like that. Yeah, just to try it out. But it's not. I don't think it's something that you would be getting regularly. Whereas the happiness one. The productive day, people are going to select that all the time, and it's sold out. It costs too much. It's mostly sold out. There's not a lot of truth in marketing on the labeling of that happy day on the A7 slot.
That's the world we live in. It's just a big vending machine where the happiness is sold out, but you can further like double down into the depression world. But instead, we just choose medium.
We don't have happiness. How about mild contentment?
For a moment.
Yeah, I'll take that. Well, it is part of that is sort of the cell of gratitude. Gratitude is this weird little, gratitude's fucking great. Don't get me wrong. Grateful for gratitude.
It was just
absolutely.
The marketing is just high school, too cool for school mentality, telling you like, oh, are you happy? You're grateful that you have a family? Shut up. And they just punch you in the gut. Something like that.
But yeah, it is but it is a little bit like life just telling you to be happy with what you have already. And it's like, oh, well, part of what I have is a brain built by evolution to never be happy with what I have. That's part of what I have. So,
and it's the best thing. It's the best tool that also has that. That's such a funny curse. It's the Robert Sapolsky rant, but like the shortened version of it is like, you get the best tool in the whole world, and the deal with the devil of it is that it doesn't want you to have gratitude. It defaults to 0 or negative gratitude.
Yeah.
Like, not that I have running water. My sink is ugly. Not that you have clean running water. The sink could look more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. It's just it's weird, all of these different life hacks that we've developed. Even just through centuries and in modern life, we kind of keep on It's the same. Our hacks are so weird. I mean, life is so again, not to like crowbar this analogy, but I think it is hard to step out and see because we're used to this every day and this seems normal to us, but the world that we're living in is absolutely not the world that we're built for. And if our hunter-gatherers saw any of us running like to exhaustion on a treadmill in one place, they'd think you're absolutely insane. And then to sit and like quiet your mind and meditate and all of these things that are super valuable. I'm not saying don't do these things. I'm saying do them, but fuck, they don't come naturally to us.
Just as you were describing them, I was just like, I don't want to do either of those things, but I should do them.
Mm-hmm. And so,
I mean, I do the meditate one, and I don't own a treadmill, but the running thing.
Yeah, I should be running again. I get a bunch of cardio though now.
I forgot that there's such thing as running shoes. So I own shoes.
You forgot?
Like I forgot. Yeah, the same way that I mean, some people have disgusting toilets and they forget that you can get a new toilet seat and you don't just have to. It's part of the house. I'd have to tear down the whole house. It's like, why don't you just get I know you can afford the $5 or $10 replacement for that, but other than that example, I have shoes and, they're sneakers, but they're not meant for like the suspension you get from running. And I forgot that there's those New Balance ones and they get better and better every year. And they're like neon and they've got like little basketballs in them or whatever. But I've never owned a pair of like good running shoes. So I'm like, I wonder what that world is like if I actually owned running shoes.
There are these like hunter. So the earlier days of anthropology have been rife with just sort of awkward presumptions that, people were like, oh, we're going to go and study these lesser people and then we'll bring them some of our great things that they don't have. And there's things like modern medicine and vaccines and stuff like that have helped tremendously. But then there's things that they, I just thought of this example of, there's these hunter-gatherers, some people were studying that they're like, you know what these people need? Shoes. They're barefoot. They're just running around in the woods with bare feet. Just gotta give them shoes. So they started giving people shoes as like a offering or whatever. And the people that would get the shoes, they would just tie them to their waist so that the other people in the tribe would see their shoes because they were like the most fancy thing that they had. They didn't want to hide them way down on their feet.
So status beats utility like throughout our whole species.
Oh, man. Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Oh, I thought of a better analogy than the toilet one. It's as though...
Toilet one's solid, actually, because as you were saying it, I was like, damn, that's pretty... I've been in some situations where I should have.
Shots fired to the dirty-ass toilet community. That's right. I'm dirty-ass toiletist. Or whatever your group is. Fuck your group. Fuck all the groups. They're all like coming at me from...
Oh no, the groups! The groups.
Imagine that, declaring war on all groups.
Here we were in the safety of our little studio talking shit about groups. Walk outside and the groups see us. It's them! Get them!
Just nothing left, not even an atom. We're just converted to literal smithereens, whatever that is. That's the smallest granularity of material existence is a smithereen.
I'm going to look up what a smithereen is.
Blown to smithereens. Oh, but my other analogy was that it's like thinking that, oh, I know that video games exist. Yeah, I've played Mario before, but it's 2021. And it's like, no, that's not video games. I'm talking about this. And then they show you the latest Call of Duty or NBA Live or Metal Gear Solid or something. So shoe technology has moved far beyond what I've been wearing. So I know that there's like really good running shoes and I want to try them.
We'll have to talk about this. I had this guy, Adam Alter, on, who's made a name for himself quite a bit since. And he was already doing well, I think, when I had him on years ago. But since then, he's been on a bunch of other much bigger podcasts and stuff. And he wrote a book called Irresistible, The Rise of Addictive Technology and the Business of Keeping Us Hooked, and just talking about that sort of thing. But one of the things, actually, maybe this isn't even in his book, but it's so related, which is those football games they come out with. That's the jackpot, because the football or soccer games or whatever, you don't even have to change anything.
Oh, right.
You just
the mechanic
put the
is the
new
same.
roster in, and everyone needs to get the newest one because you don't want to be playing with players that aren't on that team anymore. Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Incredible.
I don't know which is the better business model. Like, they're both brilliant business models, but which do you think is even easier? Having a new FIFA out every year, a new NBA Live, a new Madden, whatever, every year, or World of Warcraft, where it's like, it's just one game and you pay us like however much per month. What is it? $50 a month, $20 a month, $5 a month? I don't know. You pay us per month, and then we like release some updates and stuff. And also you can buy special clothes that only exists in the game for money that exists in real life.
Yeah. I mean, it's, World of Warcraft seems to be winning. I wonder how much it goes into it, but
it's got to be so huge now, because it was huge a decade ago, and I have no idea what they've added since then. It's got to be.
I know someone that played World of Warcraft professionally. Like, he would tutor people and stuff. You know, you would like coach people and stuff for money. He would stay for these like valuable items and everything, and
cool.
and like then sell them. And he would take so what would happen is there'd be some like treasured thing that would be populating sometime within the next like 36 hours in some spot where he'd know where it was, and he needed to be there the whole time, but he needed to fight off every single person that came in until it populated. And so he would have to take like Ritalin and have like a fucking bucket to piss and shit in.
Oh, so he's literally Eric Cartman. Where, I mean, not to get the item, but just that they went to the bathroom.
Well, and then with World of Warcraft too, there's social commitments, because I've never played the game, but I've read that there's like social commitments, like you're raiding some place with your group or your friends or whatever, so you all have to be on at this time to do this raid. And so it's like, you can't even dip out. You have friends depending on you to be addicted to this fucking game.
Enablers. I heard that it's either World of Warcraft or Minecraft, one of the two, perhaps even both, have more surface area populated than actual Earth. So there's more activity in the World of Warcraft and Minecraft worlds than we have actual terrain on Earth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The imagination has beaten out the real world.
Well, there's some game where they mapped like all of the astrological data that they could. And so then you could just fly around the universe and zip around in this game and look at various stars and regions and stuff. And from doing that, astronomers actually learned things about the state of the universe that that were like, wait, why is this here? It shouldn't be there. It should be somewhere else. And then they'd like, the game was actually teaching real astronomers.
That's cool.
Actual shit.
Like when there's a big dark patch somewhere and it's like, why is there absolutely nothing there? Like gravity dictates that it should have distributed somewhat equally. What is causing this black void? Yeah, stuff like that is cool.
So I'll smoothly transition back into psychedelics, which is this is a trippy example of something that happened in a video game. So there's some shitty video game that came out in like the early 2000s. Like after 9/11, that was like capture.
You didn't like the 9/11 game? I loved the 9/11
game. there was this game that was like capture Saddam. And in the game, all these, you play as an American soldier or whatever, and you're trying to go into Iraq and you're trying to capture Saddam in the game. And, people got this game, and I don't think it was super popular just because I think it was made poorly. But what happened was there's some people there was some coders in Iraq that just decided to change the skin of the game and call it Capture George Bush. So that it was just the exact same game. And they just changed, like, instead of Saddam character, it was Bush. Instead of like a palace, it's the White House. Instead of U.S. troops, it was Iraqi troops or whatever. It was the exact same. All the mechanics were the same in every way. They simply just changed the shirt colors, and America was like, "Can you believe this game that these terrorists made?"
It's pretty impressive. You got to hand it to them, even if you were the most, Iraqi Saddam hating person in the world.
Yeah,
which that's interesting. I don't know how much of it is propaganda. I know Saddam was a terrible guy, and his sons were equally terrible, but I thought the Iraqi people also hated Saddam, but perhaps it's like maybe just half. Maybe half of them thought like, no, he's good, or at least better than a vacuum of power. And then, but I thought most people didn't like him or were afraid of him or something. But
definitely stuff that's way out of my my interest and wheelhouse.
I thought Israel was a planet until I just heard about the Palestine thing a few months ago. I thought it was next to Pluto, but it's
just heard about the Palestine thing a few months ago is a funny sentence to throw out in a conversation. I just heard about this Palestine thing recently.
Not good.
I guess like Israel and Palestine have this thing. I don't know. It doesn't sound very good. So I've been thinking about mushrooms recently because been in like just a lower state. I'm not saying that to complain. It's weird because it's just like a few hours out of a day where I hate myself, but the rest of the day totally fine. And then but I also say it because I feel a lot more safe doing mushrooms when I'm in like a lower state than I do. I stay away from mushrooms when I'm in an already good state. And then I'm thinking about DMT, actually. It's been a while for me.
When was the last time you did that?
Oh boy. Documentary.
2017.
2017. That was the last time.
Wow.
Yeah. So
do you have access to it, or it's one of those things you can just kind of make happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Both,
and
yeah.
Both of those things.
Does that one scare you more than mushrooms?
Oh, can I say something, please? Don't write me, any of you groups out there. Don't write me asking me if I know how to hook you up with DMT. I'm not going to. First off, I apologize too, because people write me a lot of sincere questions on social media just asking for general trip advice, but I also won't do that. It's not a thing that I feel comfortable
ask
doing.
a lawyer and then ask a doctor and then ask what's another
even just general trip
figure?
advice. I give plenty when I'm talking on podcasts and stuff like that. Whatever you glean from that, there's plenty of stuff on the internet. There's plenty of things that people know way more about the chemistry and the dosing and this and that. I don't research psychedelics. I just have a great deal of experience actually doing them. And I can't, like, I don't know what your deal is. Like, it's such an individual thing. I'm not going to put myself out there and give you trip advice. So please don't write me asking where you can score DMT in your area. Do I know? Probably. Am I going to tell you? Definitely not. And just just go find a psychedelic meetup group, and you don't just go there sniffing out drugs. You don't go there to like ask someone where they can find DMT or whatever. You go there because you're genuinely curious and you want to meet like-minded people. So I know it might be a little harder with COVID, and there's also a lot of unvaccinated in those communities. So that's something, if you're immunocompromised or something, especially, you might want to be a little more skittish of that crowd. But generally speaking, those can be a really good resource for integration, for most of the questions that people send me. Like, even if I was going to answer this, you'd still be better off just looking up some local groups in your area and making some friends and getting involved in the community, and having more people to share your experiences with and hear other people's experiences anyway. So that's a solid tip that I'll give you. And it really is like, that's not me deflecting. That's just very good advice, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, the best. Apply it across the whole board. Law, medicine, anything. Podcasters are for entertainment use only.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I may have said this before, but it really is a shame that the state of the world, the war on drugs, modern medicine, which is always improving, but never perfect, and always prone to, going to be making mistakes and everything else too. But there's the idea that people that are like really desperate and really struggling, have to write like, oh, I'm so desperate right now because of what I'm going through that I'm going to reach out to this like comedian I heard on some other podcast that sounded sort of interesting. That's like, instead of going to your doctor and asking them questions about it, that's where we're at right now. The
doctor is boring, and looking up the name of a doctors don't even have pictures of themselves online. They have one tiny 16 by 16 pixel picture of themselves from 20 years ago. Whereas us, there's all this media of us, all this audio of us. So people develop a relationship with you. So it's like, I'll just ask my friend Shane. But and they kind of know you're not their friend. They've never heard of you, but they still feel the connection. So it's like, he'll tell me because he's a friendly guy, just much like in the media I've observed him in.
Yeah, that's true.
But of course it's silly thinking. Don't think like that. Think the way we program you too, by asking not us for things. DMT scares me more than mushrooms, for sure, because mushrooms have just been. Also, mushrooms give me what I'm looking to get. Like DMT is, for me, I'm not saying people can't get benefits from DMT from like a mental health, especially if you're
having some sort of spiritual crisis or something like that, or
probably will help more often. Not that that's medical advice. Nothing we said is any form of advice. LegalZoom is not a law firm. I've stated this many, many times that, more often than not, it's probably going to help you.
Well, certainly there's pros and cons, but certainly I would say that if you're scared of death, DMT can help with that.
Yeah, I'll show you some other stuff to be afraid of, like eternal existence and what that means. Like, have you ever even considered what eternal existence could mean and the just variety of different positions you're going to find yourself in over this infinite journey of like, I missed having diarrhea as a human, now being an interdimensional six dimensional general that's trying to figure out the fate of the multiverse. Like, that's so much more stressful.
Perfect shapes all the time. You know how much pressure it is to be every shape perfectly all of the time at once forever.
Ooh, that would be tough. And people are so tough to even have, like, a 6-pack or something here. I don't even think people like 6-packs anymore. Reminds me of oppression or something.
Yeah, maybe. But that is, and then you got to be on time too. Like from when you're a DMT entity, you have to show up like whenever just some fucking Yahoo decides to smoke DMT. You gotta be there, Johnny, on the spot for the moment that shit kicks in.
Surprise!
That's your day.
Yeah, a perpetual surprise party. So many people showing up and you having to be equally enthusiastic for each one. Perfect
You have
tone.
to have messages of the utmost importance for them, and the key is they have to absolutely be forgotten afterwards. They have to be the most significant thing. You got to know when that person's going to show up. You got to have the party planned for them. You have to have the most significant thing they've ever heard in their life just ready to go, said perfectly, and you need to make sure that message self-destructs within like 6 minutes. It's so much pressure.
That would be a fun movie / TV series to show someone entering the DMT world as the first arc of the film, and then the second half you see the same film from the perspective of the DMT entities fun. And having to, what do I call them? Entities. Yeah.
Empty entities.
Oh, that's a Michelangelo thing. Ungoogleable Michelangelo always has like any word, he seems to see it through another angle that can make another word and makes you think of it another way, like the entities.
Yeah.
He's kind of got in a different way than Zach Sherwin and Mike Kaplan do, like a more I don't know how to put it, but I
gotta check him out. He follows me. We have lovely correspondence, and I've never once heard him talk or anything. But I know he's been on your show, and
he's absolutely electric. But what was I talking about? Doesn't matter.
Entities.
The second half would be the entities.
They'll imagine. Like maybe your roles get shifted. When you're you take turns. Sometimes you're everything, showing a person everything that there is and always has been. And then when you get burnt out on that job, which is like, so demanding, and it's probably a lot like social work where it's like, you mean well and it's really fulfilling and gratifying for a while, but fuck, it's just so much pressure and you need a break after time because you need to take care of yourself too. And that's when I think you become an entity, which is you just kind of let down. That's like someone smokes DMT and you're like, you heard it all last time, right? Did you finish processing?
I remember those entities. Yeah, they're not even mad at you. It's more just like, oh, you again. You want to hear, you want to play the video again? Most people say accept at the end of this, but it looks like you're reading the terms and conditions. No one reads the terms and conditions. You're reading them 3 times. Hey, everyone, we've got a nerd over here. Just kidding. You're all right. Get out of here, you piece of shit.
Oh, man. That is funny. The terms and conditions thing. That's what DMT will make you feel like. If you go on a real DMT run, like you smoke it hundreds of times over 5 years or so, you'll get to a place once in a while where like, I didn't read the terms and conditions here. Like what I thought I was being sold was like that's not what's happening. This was, I went distinctly in the candy bar. You told me, or on the vending machine, you told me it was going to be this. And then I opened the wrapper and it was a different thing entirely. I get it because like it was a joke. And like you guys gotta have fun too.
It loves jokes.
Still.
Yeah, the whole thing is a joke, and the serious side of that is that it's always more than what you thought it was. There's always more that you had not looked at, uncovered, were blind to, etc. That's like kind of the serious way of it looking at it. You were blind to so much, my child. And then the funny way is like, it's a joke, you stupid idiot. You're like, oh, my life is crumbling before my eyes. It was a joke, you stupid idiot. Yeah.
Oh, this guy thinks he's crumbling. You don't know what crumbling is.
Michelangelo had a good thing on Future Fossils where he was talking about how we're all punchlines looking for our joke. Like that's what a person is, and you are like a line of genetic code, like you are just one line of DNA, and he wrapped it together so well. But I liked the conclusion of it, which was we're punchlines looking for our joke at the end of our life or something.
Yeah, you meet your setup.
Yeah.
So DMT I'm definitely more skittish about because it's consistently a fantastic time. I mean, more consistent than mushrooms even, I'd say, because I've had 3 absolutely awful DMT experiences where I was drinking. Don't do that. And then
how much alcohol are we talking?
Too much.
Like above the legal limit?
Oh, yeah.
So like drunk.
Very, very drunk and being like, you know what? I've been trying to work up the courage to do this DMT. Now I have it. It's always the craziest.
It feels like just playing too many records at once, probably.
Yeah.
Where one of the records would have been fine, but you probably just couldn't make sense of anything.
And then, 3 toward the end that just like shit started getting too real, and then reality just started feeling like a little too slippery, and I don't have enough trust in myself at this moment to deal with unslippery reality in a way that I once could quite well. I need a bit more of a stable foundation in my life before I start slipping around my reality.
Sometimes you want walls to be walls. You don't want walls to be everything. And you don't want all other objects to also be everything. I want this pen that doesn't work to be a pen that doesn't work.
Yeah. It's no meaning behind it. It's not a metaphor for another thing.
Yeah, it's not like symbolizing the number 1, which, I just looked at the clock and it said 7:01, and that means that they're after me. I like the character of, what a boring character, but extremely low threshold for synchronicity. Like instead of seeing the clock at 2:22, it's just seeing a 2 at all. It's like, I was just thinking about 2.
Yeah, there's some of those. There's some of those out there. I have some friends that everything's a synchronicity, and it's just like, I don't want to take that from you, because low threshold synchronicity people are usually love their synchronicities. You know, whereas like I'm a high threshold synchronicity person, and I don't care for synchronicities at all. When they happen, I'm like, that's super confusing. And now I think everything that I ever believed is a lie, which, yeah, much of it is and everything, but not in a healthy way. What did we talk about? What your first psychedelic experience ever was?
Mushrooms was the first, and
Me too.
It was with I'll always out his name if he wants to be mentioned, but I don't. Maybe he doesn't want to be mentioned as the thing. Some people are weird about it, but we put on an episode of The Simpsons, thinking like, oh, that'll be a fun thing to watch, and it was both of our first times doing it, and then.
How old were you?
21.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 21. All right. We were looking at the Simpsons, and then it just slowly kind of got boring, and we started to feel like something's happening. I don't know what, but it feels like some crescendo is happening. It's like, yeah, I feel it too, but I don't. It's such a thing that you can't even point to, like, oh, I feel it in my stomach or in my heart or in my head or in my intuition. It's a different sensation, at least, of just crescendo is going to happen. And then all of a sudden the TV just became the most boring thing in the world, and the carpet was breathing, and a face appeared in the carpet that we both saw that looked like a clown with a big tongue. Looking back on it, I think it might have been Kali, the destruction god, the Hindu god of. It very much looked just like. And then it started to flow towards the door, and then literal arrows we saw like pointing towards the door. And so it was telling us, oh, it wants us to go outside and experience outside. And man, we like I could go into detail of the beauty of outside, but every single thing was its own Disney park. Like one tree was perfect and had little characters in it and stuff. And then the bridge that leads to the normally ordinary stream that the apartment was near, just everything was beyond Disney World. And we were just constantly going, I get it. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. The whole thing is Disney World. And here we are complaining about the latest movie didn't live up to its standards, but it was us that was not living up to the standards of the beauty that is already in the parking lot, in the forest, the everything. So that was, and you never beat your first trip. I feel like you're still chasing that feeling a little bit.
I think psychedelics is one of the few drugs that you aren't necessarily chasing the dragon.
Maybe not when you're in it. So let's say I was under the influence of psilocybin right now, I would be like, oh, of course it's all now. Like everything is nowness. I am the ever present eternal something. But then after that trip is over, and then you ask me which was better, the most recent one or the first one, I'm probably always going to say nothing beats old timey's original recipe Coca-Cola Hershey Factory. Hershey Factory sounds bad. It's already got that bathroom connotation to it. So just the Coca-Cola recipe.
There's there's also, so the downside to that is that I know I've had lots of experiences with people that were like, had just one or two trips or whatever, and they're like, that's all I needed. I got it. I never need it again. And that, which is fine, but there is a subset of that group, again, sorry groups, which is exceptionally arrogant and dogmatic about their views on psychedelics or what psychedelics taught them and how true that is. And to those people, I'd say, do it 10 more times. See if you think the same. You should, if you really want to know what a psychedelic experience is like, do it enough you're bored with it.
Yeah.
And
so
then,
they've been to
then
Disney
you can
World
really
once.
see it. Then you're seeing past the light show and past the surface level and past the novelty and past the because you're so lost in awe those first times. It's like, and it's you. I'm not an anti-awist by any means. I'm pro awe, more awe. I'll select awe. If you could get awe out of the vending machine,
Oh, mama.
damn. Oh, I'd work so much harder if I knew I could purchase awe out of a vending machine.
But my first psychedelic experience was not only Disneyland, but Disneyland when you're 6 and there's no lines.
Yeah.
And then maybe the next time you do it, it's Disneyland when you're 13. Then it becomes Disneyland when you're 18. And then maybe it eventually, not in all aspects, but eventually it becomes you work at Disneyland and you know that it's all made of plastic and some forms of plexiglass. And then you get so bored of like that where you leave your job at Disneyland. And then so the people you were referring to, they perhaps went to Disneyland once when they were 6 and they're like, it's magic. I know. Goofy is there. Goofy is a real entity. I literally took my photo with him. And then they're selling you like whatever thing. And then you're saying like, no, try working at Disneyland for a whole summer.
It's the perfect analogy. That is because that was, and again, and I may have said this before, but I'm going to repeat it anyway. And sorry if there's repeats because we don't listen back to our episodes because I can't handle that. But he just generally, not this podcast, any podcast I've ever done ever. But there's a particular type of person that has really strong ideas about DMT and they want to tell you about it. If you go on a psychedelic tour and talk about DMT, they want to tell you their thoughts on DMT. And I had this happen so many times. At first, I was like caught off guard. And then I was like, no, this is an actual pattern that happens. What happens is someone comes up, they're very sure about DMT experience. I'll have someone come up and literally be like, yeah, I kind of, I figured it all out about DMT afterwards. Like literally they'll say shit like that to me. And then
that's the number one tell that you did not figure it out because all models are provisional.
Yeah, all of it. Did you? And I'm like, cool. What, do you want to buy something or like, and then they'll be like, well, so what do you want to know? Like I'll have questions for them. The person that figured it all out. Oh, I've been itching to meet the person that figured it all out.
How come DMT hot dogs come in packages of 6, but then DMT hot dog interdimensional buns come in packages of 6?
And there's sometimes where someone like has a good rap and everything and sounds really I'm always amused by verbal fluency. It's a skill that I don't feel like I possess in the same way that a lot of people do. And it's always like we're talking about like Zach Sherwin or so when someone's just like, man, that good with words. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm so clunky and everything. I'm fine enough with concepts, but I wish my words would just come out that smooth and I would find the ones I'm looking for all of the time. And sometimes I'll meet someone like that talking about DMT, and I'll be kind of impressed by their seeming knowledge of it. They'll have like a very strong take that isn't mine, that they're kind of like, I don't know, trying to debate me or something, maybe in a friendly way. But so I'll be like genuinely curious. I'll be like, man, how much DMT have you smoked? And they'll say, oh, I tried it once. I didn't really break through. What the fuck are you talking about then? Like, not everyone has to. You don't need to have the experience to know about it. There's certainly scientists that study things that they haven't themselves been through or whatever else. And there's like plenty of validity and that in certain ways. But holy shit, the arrogance that sometimes comes along with people that like had one experience once. And I'm not trying to, the other side of it is someone like myself or other people are like, I've smoked this much DMT or done this many mushrooms and I know this and that. And like, just nobody does. No one knows. No one knows at all. It's fucking confusing.
It's like the comedy open mic where there's the comic that's been doing it for a week that's like, let me tell you how this works. And then there's there's the old comic that has been doing open mics their whole life, cannot even get like a feature gig to save their lives. And they're like, I've been doing this for 30 years, kid. Take it from me. So it's like, no, you're both full of shit in different ways and some of the same ways. And it is a shame that there are some complete idiots that are very good communicators. They have the gift of gab. And then there's some really brilliant people that are terrible communicators, but
are just awfully shy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You just interrupt them once and you lost all of the wisdom they were going to say.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. That verbal fluency stuff is really something to behold, because it's, I mean, people are so impressed by it, myself included, that it's, and I think that if I've also found that sometimes there's some people that I know that are so incredible with words that I'm like, oh, of course you're buying your own shit. Like, it sounds beautiful.
Oh yeah, and if you're the best,
want to buy into that.
Yeah, if you're the best at describing stuff, then you're kind of doomed because everyone else's description sucks.
Give me 1 second.
All right, get out of here. This part of the episode will not be edited out, but it might be, but it probably won't be because I filled the time and now we're back.
Perfect. So yeah, that was your first mushroom experience when you were 20. And
what was yours? Yours was like 12, right?
No, I was 16, and the oddest thing about it is that I don't remember anything about it other than it being the most significant event of my life.
I don't really even remember not a single background.
With. I think I remember who gave it to me, and I just knew I love mushrooms. I know that what happened. I know like the takeaway. It was just incredible, and I was already on my way there. So many of these things, it's like, well, maybe, you know, a lot of people figure these things out without psychedelics, and psychedelics are often just a catalyst for figuring out these things, having these shower thoughts come to you a little faster, having some mindfulness ideas come to you a little faster. But I just remember, like, you know, ever since I was, you know, when I was like 9 or 10, and I just started thinking, like, I'm sure so many people feel, you know, like an alien in a world and don't relate to anybody. But I just thought, oh, I can't tell anyone what I think life is about, or that all of their ideals and everything are wrong, and that like church and stuff that I was being drugged to, like, oh, this is made up, this isn't a real thing. And I always just thought like either I'm crazy or everyone else is crazy. And I was also peculiar. I had a peculiar sense of humor and everything else, which I had friends and people liked my sense of humor. But I just felt like I felt so odd, and I just thought that it's probably, chances are it's because I'm crazy. Like for someone to think, oh, the whole world's crazy. It's not me. The whole world's crazy. I recognized, I was like, well, there's ego in thinking that. Like, it's probably just me that's off. And then I remember after my first mushroom trip, I was like, oh no, I was right. The world is fucking insane. It was just such a relief, and yeah, I was hooked. It's not like I did them as often as I could, which wasn't a lot, but because they were, this is like late 90s, and
not a very psychedelic time either.
Not a very psychedelic time. In Wisconsin, not a very psychedelic place to be in.
I mean, the sitcom Friends and Smash Mouth's All Star. That's what I think of the late 90s. But I love the 90s. I love the late 90s. Of course, there's more than that. But you're just thinking of, in terms of culturally, is it very psychedelic? Then not really.
Right. And so, I just took to, and what I would do is I would just try to get, whenever mushrooms were in town, I would, cause I started dealing weed and then mushrooms when they would come around as well. So I would just try to get like ounces of mushrooms and just sell them, like, not really to make much of a profit, but just to sell them to a bunch of my friends so we could all trip. And so I used to like the idea of putting together like armies of tripping people. I always called them when I was less mature, but
it's
but
such
as
a
a teenager
oxymoron though, because there wouldn't be an army. Army is such a non-psychedelic
but I would
construct.
get like 30 people to walk around town like tripping, or out in the woods or whatever, and just a huge collection of people. So that was a pretty early start for me, where I would try to get as many people together all on mushrooms at the exact same time.
What was your record?
At the same time and everything. Probably around 30.
That's a lot of tripping people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I could have got more mushrooms, I would have got more, but usually there's constraints.
Like I stress out at the thought of 4 people tripping at the same time.
Well, most of my most beneficial experiences have been by myself on large doses of mushroom. When I'm around other people, I prefer to do like a smaller dose, but when I'm by myself, I prefer large dose, like watching Animal Planet and stuff, or what I like, animal documentary, like David Attenborough type stuff, usually on mute. And so you don't really have to pay attention with some music going, and access to like cool outdoor stuff. Hopefully the weather's nice and whatnot. So you can do both. I like to be able to do both. And depending on the situation. But I definitely, and I usually bring a notepad with me. I don't trip the way that necessarily everyone does. I never read any research online about like how to do it or anything like that. I just
really, you didn't
stumbled on things that worked for me.
You didn't do a little, I mean, late 90s, huh? No Google yet. Google is 1998, and it wasn't even good back then. I mean, it was
honestly,
better than...
I barely still have done any research into psychedelics.
I researched the hell out of it.
2 books.
I researched for days. I was reading about orange juice and eating mangoes and an empty stomach, and don't worry about the pain in your stomach, and on, until I was convinced that, oh, this is super safe.
Yeah. I just got used to it and I just like figured it out on my own. And it's funny because so many of those things that I stumbled on a lot of ways were like really match pretty well with a lot of the protocols. I mean, people wouldn't say to trip by yourself, but
Terrence would.
I would get myself in a space where I felt free to, where I can cry, where I can laugh like a lunatic, I don't like being around people and thinking, am I crazy, or is this thought too weird, or does this make sense, or whatever. Sometimes when I'm tripping, I just say things that don't make sense. And that's totally fine to do. But when you're around other people and then they're tripping and you're tripping and then you just said a thing that doesn't make sense and then they get like weird about it and that it can be a whole thing. And I've had absolutely beautiful experiences by myself. And of course it's not, the cliche of jumping out windows or whatever. I think that's like a valuable enough disclaimer in that you probably could do some fucked up shit
but
if you're
also,
by yourself.
People who aren't on anything also make stupid decisions like jumping off a roof near a pool that there's no way they're going to make the jump. They haven't measured the jump. They just believe it because that's what they want to happen. And then they just shatter both their shins doing so. Those are non-psychedelically induced ones. But I will say it's not impossible. Like sometimes there's been moments where I've thought like, oh, I'm glad I'm hyper careful about this kind of thing. But someone who just is taken away with the magic of the moment emotion could probably believe that they could do anything. The cars are my friends. It's all love. Duh.
Or decide that like you're finally gonna pull the trigger on ending your life or whatever. That's that. I mean, I've seen people. I've helped out in Jamaica and stuff at Michael meditation retreats and stuff, and I've helped people that are like, most of the people that came there are pretty intelligent, already affluent-ish. The majority of them, and different people came there for different things, but usually older than me, and there'd be people that would have big ideas and want to move money around and make investments and stuff because they just had an epiphany during a mushroom trip, and be like, no, like don't move your money around. That's what this week is for. Don't be on the phone while you're tripping to call your spouse or your dad or like whatever, because you just had this fucking huge epiphany. Just wait till it wears off.
Trisha Eastman did it right, but I don't think it was an impulse. I think it was a conclusion at a long arc. Because if I'm remembering right, I think she owned 4 houses and then was like, no, I don't need these anymore. And then like got a divorce and didn't even fight for getting houses. Just like, no, you can keep the houses. They don't matter to me. And now just lives that psychedelic life and does psychedelic journeys is what it's called or something. I think you might have talked to her before. She's in our world of, the Michael Garfield, my world, your world.
Right. Yeah. She's nice.
But some people do choose to make big decisions following psychedelic experiences. But don't do it during or right after. Let it sit. You take it out of the grill and then you let it sit on the wood block for a bit.
Yeah.
Let the juices simmer in and cook and rasterize.
Rasterize is the word, yes.
It's an Amish word, an Amish dialect.
So your first mushroom trip when you were 20, and then what happened after that? Were they a thing you started doing regularly, or was that just
I didn't feel the need
like,
to do it again for a while, maybe not for another 6 months to a year. And I've never had that impulse to, as soon as it's over, be like, I can't wait to get back. It's normally I'm just so hungry to be back in regular, boring 3D and take the hall of ideas or integrated lessons or directions I want to go in. And because I don't know, I think I came here to live in actual 3D life and not escape it. But then sometimes I have to escape it because it sucks. But I came here because it sucks, but not too much, because my soul didn't want to be like, assaulted as a child or something. Some people maybe wanted to do that, but then that's kind of getting into the secret, because it's like, if you were assaulted, your soul chose vibrationally to have everything bad happen. Therefore, you just have to want it to be different.
Yeah. So what would you, because you've done like MDMA and stuff too, right?
Yeah. I mean, that one brings out what's supposed to be brought out in you. Sometimes it makes you love the world and every fabric and everything, and just blend in with, like, the blanket is the same as me and I'm the same as the blanket, and I can't believe I thought I was separate for that long. And also you're just happy. And other times, like, if I was holding in like sadness and I didn't let it get out, then it's just all like heart closed up thing until you cry it out, till you break that open. But I tried to do it as a shortcut to not be sad, and then it just brought out the sad. It's a big highlighter of like, what's this? What do you call this?
If you don't want to be sad, what are you doing with all those sad?
Yeah, you can't just not have the baggage you're holding on to. Have you experienced those two spectrums of MDMA, or has it always been happy?
Well, so my early experience was, early 20s doing it at parties. And I was like, this is
it a
stupid.
hookup drug? Are people more likely to hook up on it? Or is it even, it goes past the hooking up to where you're like, let's both feel the couch together? And it's the most platonic thing ever, because you've just already blended with everything. Why should anyone hook up? You're already hooked up. Everyone's
I don't know
either,
because I don't have that much experience in either domain of like being at a party and like meeting a stranger, like a girl on MDMA. But I would say probably individual differences apply. It could probably be both. But I had at parties just hanging out with like, guy friends or whatever, on MDMA. I always just thought, this is just fun and pure happiness, and it just isn't moving the needle for me. For some, like, it's not a, like, I want the awe and I want the perception shifts is what really does it for me. I love epiphanies. I'll sit through a tedious book in the hope of getting an epiphany or two, because that's, to me, those are life-changing moments. And that's always what I'm chasing. And I don't feel like I would get those, at least in that setting. And so I just assumed I just didn't like MDMA that much. I also thought it was just like, feels a little too good for me to trust it. Like, I just don't generally trust things that feel that good.
Is it because you're going to feel bad after?
Yeah, just like it always feels like some sort of a trick. Like sex feels like a little bit of a trick to me. Love feels like a little bit of a trick to me.
You've never you haven't experienced the waves of it where it gets boring and then it gets exciting again, and it gets boring and gets exciting again.
MDMA or sex?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Love, sex, happiness.
Oh yeah.
It just feels like
them.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them. Yeah. But I would say that my relationship with MDMA changed 5 or 6 years ago or so when I finally did it, in a relationship, with someone. I was always doing psychedelics like on the sneak because I was always in a relationship where the lady didn't want me or like thought they were crazy or just like fell for the usual garbage. And then I had one that was open, and
the secrecy adds to it a little bit though.
What's up?
I was going to say the secrecy sometimes adds to it. And I was just talking with Sean and Cass, and Sean's dad, he's allowed to smoke weed now. It's legal, and he has a prescription and stuff, and it helps with whatever thing. I forget what it was, anxiety or some actual physical medical condition, but he still keeps it secret and is like, hey, let's just go out to the back and smoke this here. It's like, but you can smoke it here. Mom's okay with it. He's like, come on, let's go smoke it. He loves keeping little secrets like that. And I don't know, some people like their little secrets, but go on. You were saying that was the first time you did it. That wasn't a secret.
That was the first time I'd done it in a relationship, and that changed everything for me. I thought that was, I was like, oh yeah, why MDMA being a couples therapy drug, that makes total sense to me. I guess it just felt productive and worthwhile, and like I was getting something of substance from it rather than just a fleeting feeling of happiness. And that changed my relationship with MDMA, rather than, because that's, at the end of the day, that's mostly what I'm in it for. Like I'll take good feeling. I'm not averse to feeling good, but a little passing transient, like I mean, so many other things do that. You can like have a little kratom or some alcohol or something like that and kind of feel a little good for a little while and have a buzz, and it's like, who cares? That's the cheap stuff in the vending machine is the temporary feeling good stuff. And usually there's a cost that you pay that's heavier after that vending machine chases you down for more money.
It doesn't spit out your card. It just keeps charging it. Should have put in coins, but I haven't had a coin in 7 years. Yeah. But the good feeling, the one epiphany benefit of it can be that if you have not felt good in a really long time, then it can remind you that, oh, I forgot that happiness was a place, actually. Or not a physical place, but, a place mentally. And it had been so long that I forgot that it even was. So it gives me something to strive for.
My friend Jake Baker always says that about MDMA. And he does huge doses, like...
It can't kill you, right? I mean, I know water can kill you, but I don't think there's been an MDMA death. No. Maybe a dehydration or overhydration. Oh, that's not
true. So a couple things. One, so the number of factors for things to go wrong, it has to be like a number of things have to happen. So one, dehydration is a big one. And then there's also, what is it? It's women with
giant tits.
No, there's some spine. There's some spine issue that inhibits your ability to thermoregulate. I think females maybe don't thermoregulate as well as guys do. There's something like that. And there's some sort of spine condition where you don't thermoregulate as much. And then MDMA additionally inhibits your ability to thermoregulate.
So does this mean that they're more likely to experience cold and heat, or one pole? Because that's like an old 80s stand-up thing, is the women always touching the thermostat or something.
Yeah.
But women be shopping and they won't stop touching the thermostat.
That's probably that the thermal regulation is like not in the same. It doesn't work in the same way that ours does.
Let's go back in time, and the first thing we do when we have our time machine is we just go to that laugh stop, and then the '80s comedian saying the women thermostat thing.
Why is that? And then we answer them. Actually,
well, women's thermal regulation differs by approximately 1.2 thermons.
Yeah, so there's something. Yeah, there's something along those lines that has to happen. I'm trying to think of the specific condition. I'm just not quite accessing it. But yeah, so and then you can overhydrate too. Some people, because they're on MDMA, drink so much water because they're like over conscious about it. And so that can be a thing too.
It's the Icarus myth.
But again, to say all this would put someone off of MDMA, I think, and that would be a shame because I think it's a pretty safe drug, and
it's pretty wild how little of it produces how much result. Yeah. That always blows my mind.
Whatever one in the MAPS trials, what is it, 125 mics or something? Shoot. Here, remember when I said my brain isn't working as well? But whatever they use in their trial, I find to be a pretty reliable, nice little. And then sometimes, I guess the thing is you can re-up once, like 2 hours in with a half dose or something like that, and that can prolong it. I would look that up, but my friend Jake does like double that, or he does like 200 or something like that, which is like, seems to me to be a lot, and like playing with fire a little bit, but he swears by that amount. And he said, I bring him up because he said what you just said, which I've always been a little envious of, and I think about because I want to be there one day. Which is he says that it makes him feel so great, but feel in a way that like, oh, this is right here, and I can feel this good at any time, and I can just recall this and feel good, and look back on it and feel good, and that's why he does it on the 3-4 times a year.
Imagine if feelings were songs that we could just call up anytime we wanted to. I mean, you might say a song makes you feel a certain way, but that's not true. It wears off and moods shift. But imagine if we could just keep a feeling in a little app.
Did I tell you about the satiation study with the songs?
No. Lay it on me.
There's I had this guy, Joe. Shoot, I'm so bad with names. Anyway, University of Minneapolis, Business, Foster School of Business. Joe, all right. He studies satiation and boredom, and through a variety of ways. And one of my favorite studies that he's done is he asked people what their favorite songs were, and you'd say, so you go in, you say what your favorite song is ahead of time. Then you go in and they have just like the main hook of that song for you, and you have to listen to it like 100 times in a row. And people just fucking hate that song, whatever it is. And what's interesting is that there's ways to get it, but so there's conditions in which they'll never want to listen to that song ever again. After that, you just ruined that person's favorite song. And then there's conditions where you can get it back, and it's really as simple as, so if you have someone come in like a week later and you play them that song again unprompted, like the full song, they'll hate you for doing it. But if you instead ask them to recall all of the music that they've been listening to from that last time until now over the week, just recall every possible song that you can, it creates distance and space in the mind. And so it becomes new again.
That's kind of cool. Like consistently?
Yeah, pretty consistently. Yeah.
See, I would have picked like some binaural beat that Corey Allen made. And then I could have sat there for an hour and just meditated to some raindrops. I never tire of raindrops and binaural beats.
Oh, man.
Hey, man, I recorded this.
You don't
in
want
Austin,
to put that out in
Texas.
the universe.
Yeah.
That's, your next trip is just going to be an unbearable amount of pleasant sounding raindrops on beats. Just unbearable. I always think of that Simpsons episode, since we brought up Simpsons, where I forget if it's the devil. I think he's in hell or whatever, in the donuts.
Oh yeah, he never gets tired of them.
Yeah, he's just like, you like donuts, huh? How about all the donuts in the world? And it's just huge shells of donuts being shoveled into his mouth, and he's like, more.
Are we wired to just tire of any state, no matter how pleasurable? Yeah. Because even a perpetual orgasm would become hell. A perpetual, like your favorite wine, like the peak of it hitting your tongue and sustaining that note, like would get tiresome.
Yeah, because there's a lot more to satiation than like space or fullness.
It's not a destination. It's a story, I guess you could say. Satiation is a story.
Your stomach isn't full. You're satiated. That's it. Someone comes around, asks if you want dessert. All of a sudden you go, maybe. Actually, you know what? I could.
New story,
different
to the
world
brim
before that. And it's because so much of it is psychological. It was not that your stomach was full. It was, I mean, your stomach is filling. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But,
do you like dessert pressure? I think it's kind of funny how much pressure I haven't been to a restaurant in 2 years, but the way there, it's like, any room for dessert? Well, take your time. Look at it. My favorite is this one. Oh, no dessert? Nothing to even take home?
I'm a dessert fan, and I think I'm just like a sucker for... I have something that there's something about eating like fancy spoiling myself with meals, which I spoil myself on almost nothing else, but dining out, I spoil myself. And there's some sort of feedback loop where it's tricky, because even when I shouldn't be spending this much money on a meal, there's something in my mind going, oh, looks like you're doing pretty well for yourself sitting here. I'm not thinking about the credit card debt or whatever. There's some sort of feedback of like, you wouldn't be sitting here having this insanely expensive appetizer or like 5-course meal if things weren't going well in your life right now. Oh
yeah, or buying
just
people
makes me feel good.
Buying people dinner. Like let's say your bill would have been like $15, but you bought the whole table meal and it's under 100 still, but you're like inside. Must be pretty cool if I can buy a whole table of humans' food this one time.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't do it, but internally, like outside, you're like, oh, no, of course.
That's part of the thing with shots and everything else too. Like that was drinking early on for me. I was like, yes, around the idea of just
buying around. That's what I miss about bars.
Yeah.
I don't miss bars that much though, and it's crazy how back in the days of going to bars where you could drop $200, $300 in a night and not really think about it. But then every 5 years, like, should I buy the new Nintendo? I don't know. it's a couple of $100, but then you can just waste hundreds in a bar and feel terrible. Overpriced, learned nothing. No memories even. The memories are gone. The money's gone. You're gone.
Yeah. I've spent so much money on shit like that. That is funny because it's like I could have bought a house instead of all like the fine dining I've done over the year. Probably it's about a house worth.
Yeah. But you would have been driven crazy inside, like, I have not lived. I spent all my money on this fucking house. Curse this house. And then you start tearing it down.
Yeah, it's true.
People like to complain about,
grass
like complain about what?
Grass is greener.
Oh, grass is greener. Yeah, it is grass is greener, I guess. But the way that boomers could buy a house for $30,000 and, all our parents, like, all they had to do was walk up to a building and take the hired sign off, and then they could buy a house in 3 months. And now, I need $500,000 to even just put a down payment on a house, which it is true. It was way easier for them to buy houses, but that generation is also way older than us. And being older is not better than being younger. Like your body just works better when you're younger and you've got more time ahead of you. And like they had no internet in there. And yes, the internet is driving us crazy, but I like to cognitively reframe it as like, yeah, it is tougher to buy a house now and it is late stage capitalism, but we have internet. And if you use it right, it's fun. And also you're younger than the old people you might be jealous of. Anyone older than you're jealous of, you're younger than them.
My dad lived in a 3-bedroom, maybe 4-bedroom house with 7 siblings. And so, that's a situation. They didn't have any heat or central air. They would eat the eggs that they couldn't sell. And so, I don't know.
Yeah.
But houses are expensive now.
I always think of, or not always, but recently I was thinking of, what's his name? The Thomas Sowell. Do you know Thomas Sowell?
Mm-mm.
I haven't really explored his ideas to see if they're, see which ones would stand out to me at least as like, oh, that's not true. But he's a economist and I think more on the conservative side. But what makes him interesting is that he grew up in the pre-electricity Jim Crow South. He's a black man and is a conservative economist. So he's like got the experience behind him of like, no, I know what tough living is like. And also the economics background. So it's like, damn, what is this? This is an interesting guy.
What's his name?
Thomas Sowell. He gets neglected from things, but I'm sure like my communist friends are going to be like, oh, you said Thomas Sowell on the thing. Like that's worse than Candace Owens. But so far, the little clips I've seen, he's like, he makes sense of things, but it's at the end of the day, like, it's either coming from that one free market side or coming from the people need help up, and it's not all about personal responsibility. So it is just that endless argument again.
Yeah.
But the fact that dude's still alive in his 90s, someone from the pre-electricity Jim Crow South.
Yeah, that's fucking
and then
wild to think about. Yeah, I mean, there's still areas in like Louisiana and stuff that they still use porta potties in areas I've driven through. I'm like, that's a fucking porta potty over there. Incredible. And so if they're still using porta potties now, like you can only imagine. It's 80 years ago or whatever. It must have been a trip. I hope you guys all enjoyed our second psychedelic. Maybe one of these days we'll do like a how-to episode with some basic advice, setting, intention, integration, that sort of stuff.
And we've talked about having Dr. Cole Marta on once we start doing guests.
Yeah,
that's a legit psychedelic scientist.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And but yeah. Next week Next week, we're going to be talking about me breaking my feet.
Both of them.
So hopefully all of you haven't already heard the story a zillion times, or if you had, this time will be different. And but I learned a lot from the experience, and I have a lot of interesting ways in which I think about life that came from that experience, because all big salient memories like that are teaching opportunities.
Climbing down a mountain with your hands.
Yeah. So
you didn't think that going up the mountain. You're probably like, I'm going to be walking down this thing.
Yeah.
But nope,
yeah.
Got to crawl down it with your hands.
And so, yeah, we're going to talk about that. And also, just thanks so much for the Patreon support. This show is ad-free and 100% funded by your Patreon support. And if you go to Patreon, you aren't just funding us, you're getting bonus content. So all you honey bears out there salivating for more content, well, we have Mind Under Art, a weekly show where you, the Patreon supporter, gets to mention one of your favorite pieces of Ramin's and give a little spiel about it. And we share that. Ramin talks about how he came up with the art piece, and we comment on your comments on his art and make a whole episode out of that. It's much like this show, but just with a piece of art as the jumping off point. And then we have a monthly bonus episode that we do that's kind of all over the place, different things. Sometimes we talked a bunch of shit. Sometimes we just want to chat about movies or something. Sometimes we had some old project that we worked on that we share with you. Lots of stuff like that. And once a month as well, there's a public episode driven by the Patreon suggestions that Patreon members give. So you'll also get control over the show. And so appreciate your support. And until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys, 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 honeys. Ding, ding.